Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religions. Tonight's guest, William Freeman, someone whose brain I'm rather fond of. William, the floor is yours. Tell everybody what you're doing, why you're here.
I am here because I enjoy your beard immensely. I have often imagined myself being able to cultivate such a magnificent growth, and I'm here to find out exactly how you managed to do such a thing.
Okay, well, you're going to be disappointed. We're not going to be covering that tonight, so moving on.
All right, fine.
I'll tell you how to grow a magnificent beard. Step 1, have the right genetics. Step 2, don't shave. That's really it.
Could you repeat those? I don't think I got the... Okay, go ahead.
Have the right genetics to have a big, glorious beard, and then don't shave it. That's it.
Got it. Okay, I'll work on it.
Did you write it down? Take notes on that? Turns out that southern Italy got conquered by the Moors, which are a very hardy, although short, stocky people who are really hairy. So I have effectively a Moorish beard is what I ended up with. But then I ended up with Scot-Irish hair color.
Definitely have Moorish beard than me.
Yeah, it's a lot Moorish than most beards. Okay, enough of the bad jokes. Okay, so I brought William on tonight, guys, because I think William has a brain that works pretty good. And I like to be critiqued on my view, because if I'm saying something ridiculous, I'm not so proud that I need to remain in a certain mindset in order to be okay with me and be okay with life. I'd much rather be corrected and become correct rather than be comfortable in something that doesn't make any sense. Now, I know a lot of people that choose the other side of that. A lot of religious folks do. I don't find William Freeman doing that. It seems to me that most of the things he says make sense, at least within a coherent idea of itself. But tonight, I want to challenge that. I want to see if he can find holes in what I'm saying, and if I can find holes in what he's saying. And to take the pressure off of him, I'll make the first positive assertion for him to attack my position, and then we'll see where it just naturally flows from there. Okay, so here's my assertion. The Bible already has terms for God and the Father, saying, call none the Father but God. I mean, call none God but the Father. I said that backwards. Call none God but the Father. But then we also have the Son, who is also equally God. But then we also have angels, an angel of God or messenger of God, who is sometimes speaks as God, but is not identified as the Father or the Son, or for that matter, I haven't even included the Holy Ghost yet. So what I see going on there works well within the reading frame that I've adopted, that God is a set of constructs that all in heaven agree to and adhere to perfectly, and are thereby those beings God. That there is no God in the Bible, that Yahweh itself would be an it, not a he. Thoughts that happened in your brain?
I think we've talked about this a little bit before. I kind of feel like it's the name of a family. It's a family of beings. There are sons of this God. There is Jesus, the begotten of this God. I will say that God is a set of principles, but I think he's more than just that. I don't limit it to just being a set of principles. But as far as the inhabitants of eternity keeping God's rules and principles and observing them, I don't think that holds based on my understanding of Scripture. It appears that there was violations of these principles, and that's the reason why Jesus was the lamb slain before the foundations of the earth. And again, we've talked about this before. I believe that this is a a way to deal with sin as though it was a computer virus that was trying to infest eternity by creating time, space, and matter. In this galaxy, we have a way to bring sin to an end, to a conclusion here materially, like a quarantine. I believe that humans are witnesses, that we will sit in judgment of these angels, and that God himself has put himself on trial.
I don't know which part of that to chase down. You said you think that God is more than a set of principles. What do you mean by that?
He's a set of principles. He's force. He's powerful. I don't claim that he's omniscient. But I think he's personal. I think that he is singular in his personality, that he is by himself a creation, or not a creation, but an entity, not merely a set of principles. Now, these principles are his character, and they apply to the idea of what is good and what is not good, and always has, and define the very fabric of our universe.
In keeping with that, aren't we saying that the first recollection of the creation of Adam, a singular event, before there was Eve, was created by Elohim, a plural? So I'd like you to clarify how the Elohim can be plural there, unless you hold that angels predate Adam.
Angels do predate Adam, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So that's
they were involved in the creation of this temporal place. This is an agreed upon trial. This is the evidence. This is Exhibit A.
This is expound on the idea you just said, because that was complicated.
Okay. This universe, like I said, this place of time, space, and matter is Exhibit A in God's trial. The reason why sin and transgression and rebellion has to be dealt with. Oh, Ace Theo! I'm sorry, I get very excited when Ace comments. A little bro crush. Sorry. I've already asked him. He's not going to marry a man, so I gave up. But anyway, so yeah, sorry. But yeah, this is the evidence of why God must do this strange act for him. This is also a testing place. Like, he's sorting out who is family, who is going to inherit eternity with him. You know, there's lots of parables about that given in the Bible. You know, the wedding feast and people that were invited not coming, so other people received that invitation instead. Yeah,
right. Sent out the servants onto the highways to check who else was around. Because right, but the ones originally intended don't make it.
Exactly. So the rest of the family, if you will, of God, these watchers, these hosts, you know what I mean? The heavenly hosts, they're all watching. This is on display for all creation beyond just our universe. This is setting the precedence for something big. God has put himself on trial. He's held himself accountable for the results of free will given to creatures. And that it is necessary for his characteristic of love to be expressed. So as one of his principles. So I think everyone is watching intently, and there's a lot of there's humans are not the center of it. All humans tend to think that that it's all about us, and it's not. We're witnesses to it.
We're part obviously the most obvious thing to us.
You're right. Exactly.
So we tend to be human centric. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people talking about, hey, why didn't God do it this way? Why didn't God just forgive everybody just because he can? Because it's a court case. That's why he's not interfering with things the way that he could. He's allowing things to play out the way they must to demonstrate his point and to show that he is just, so that one day every knee will bow and acknowledge that he's righteous in what he's done.
Yeah, one of Ace Theo's favorite lines is all in all. But in order to become all in all, what needs to be done? That's something like what you're saying, yes?
I don't know. I don't know if that's something that I'm saying. I'm not familiar with what is meant by that. All in all.
That God becomes all in all. Everything to all of us.
I think eventually there will be those who are part of the family, the extended family of God, will be what is left. There won't be anything outside of that. Those who don't, including the fallen angels, those, if they're found guilty. And Paul did say that, do you not know you will sit in judgment of angels? I can't imagine we'd be sitting in judgment of the good ones. So those angels and those people who just refuse to seek, refuse to establish that bond with their creator, I guess they don't join eternity. They're just gone. They're blotted out. That's my understanding.
Okay.
You got to be just in that action, though, if you're God.
Well, if you want to be respected, you need to be respectable. I have to agree with that. And I can't imagine going to a heaven under a God that I thought was unjust. Like, why would any of us accept that?
It'd be like God taking hostages, you know?
It would be something like that.
If you couldn't respect him and you were there against your will, I mean, that's not heaven. That's a different kind of hell. So if his tune doesn't resonate with you, doesn't harmonize with you, heaven's not going to harmonize with you. It's not going to resonate with you. I use that tuning fork kind of thing. If goodness and things of God don't register with you, don't move you, then maybe it's just that's not in you. That's not, you wouldn't enjoy heaven.
What do you think? Because now I'm just interested in hearing more about your view more than trying to troubleshoot your view. Because I realize now that you've said some things that I have a lot to learn about what you hold to. If you don't mind kind of changing gears a little bit.
Sure.
Okay.
You allow smoking on your broadcast?
It's your house. In the trial that God has volunteered for, where he is tried before angels, and we are exhibit A, or maybe exhibit C, we don't really know.
Sure.
Why be proud about it? Who's the judge?
I think the host is the judge.
The angels are the judge.
Yeah, the other angels, the ones that are not involved, that are not parties to the case.
Angels who are not party to the case.
Okay. Right. You had fallen angels. Enoch mentions those. The scriptures mention those. You have fallen angels. This precedes mankind. They are party. The fallen angels are charged. They were the ones that were cast out. That doesn't say that they left willingly. They were cast out. Basically,
that's correct.
Taken to a holding cell until their hearing.
So glad you said that, because apparently their hearing's at the end of this earth.
Yes, absolutely. All of it comes to end. This is a one-time deal. That Nahum 1:9 says that sin will never re-enter the earth again. No one will ever choose this way again.
To address Sammy Jenkins, I did not purposefully remove your wrench. I will check into that soon enough. Not right now, but soon enough. DB, you are welcome, as I've said several times, to contact me through a comment on any of my videos, and I will respond to you, and we will set up a show for only you, because it looks like you've got some questions. Love to answer them, but I'm not going to disrespect Will to respect you when you have had this offer several times. Okay.
Have you noticed in the scriptures that there's a lot of consensual language with the covenants?
Mm-hmm.
There's an agreement. These are legal agreements with quid pro quos.
I believe so, yes.
And God acts in those regards, but then we wonder why he doesn't act in other situations. But what is each covenant seems to be different with each different issuance of a covenant. His character doesn't change.
How many
I guess it
covenants are there?
depends, because there's some that are with everyone, and there's some that are just with the Jews. Then there's some with Nineveh. There's some, whenever he deals with someone, he makes deals with you. If you change, then I'll he sends prophets with these ultimatums. If you change your ways, I'll spare your city. If you turn from your evil, I'll prosper you. But there's this quid pro quo in all of it.
Yeah,
And
well,
again,
that's
there's a lot
evidently
of
true, but you couldn't have respect of free will without, the other party aspect. It couldn't
right,
be
but
one sided, just God, right?
there's an interaction there. There's a way that God interacts with people. I mean, if you look historically in the scriptures, if you follow those as things that actually happen, God seems to interact on a basis of quid pro quo. I don't find anything that's completely unconditional.
I think that's true. I think that's true. I mean, even if
So
you
there are
take it down
rules.
to like the unforgivable sin, there is a way that a person cannot enter heaven.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's rules. There's rules, and God apparently has limitations within these rules, whether it's because he chooses that he will limit himself to these things, or if there are literal limitations that he cannot go past.
Well, a lot of Christians have a big problem with you saying that.
I know. I hear it all the time.
I'll bet you do. Of course, there's logical problems with most that would hold that position. That if God cannot change his mind or alter, I believe, and I think you would agree, that God must act within the nature of God consistently,
How could he do otherwise?
and that is unchanging.
A king is not above his own decrees. A king has to follow through with his decrees, whether he changes his mind and disagrees with it or not, just to maintain legitimacy of his rule.
I actually hold that angels were man on earth, that Adam is literally the father of all, which would include this earth, but would not be limited to this earth. Especially when I consider promises like Abraham having children like the stars in the sky, those kinds of sand in the sea, those kinds of promises. It's obvious one planet would not support anything close to that. And that's either a gigantic exaggeration, like a ridiculous one, or it doesn't mean one planet.
Hey, what if, okay, Abraham's seed is not as is it's not just saying it's the Jews.
Oh, I don't think it is just the Jews. I think it's the whole of the planet.
Right. And if you count all those who have passed before and all those that'll go, afterwards, it could be that number.
I'm afraid the present best estimates that we have, depending on where you look, and there can be variance in these scientific surveys, but the best estimates I've seen, the highest estimate I've seen, is approximately 110 billion people life of the planet to this point.
And why would we assume that this isn't just poetic, flowery language, which you find in other places in Scripture?
Well, I didn't say it can't be flowery, and I didn't say it can't be poetic. I said if it's figurative, it's way over the top.
Okay, yeah, I would agree.
Okay, and I don't take it as being that I take it as being possibly figurative, but I don't take it as being that exaggerative.
Yeah, once I got to where you were going with the literal thing, I'm like, yeah, no, he's right. Yeah, no, not literally that many.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable amount of offspring.
There's something like 77 trillion stars in the Milky Way, something like that. So yeah, you could never get a planet with this surface area to be in front of a star long enough for that many people to happen. It just wouldn't happen. Wouldn't even get close. Okay, so moving forward from there. Okay, so what has God to prove to the angels already ascended, already perfected in heaven? I really don't get that part of it.
That what he's doing is just his rules and the limitations he places on angels. I mean, obviously they were upset about the limitations concerning us, and procreation with us. All right. So there are I'm sure there's other things that they've disagreed with, but he put it right to the test, and they were tempted by human women, and fell into sin with them. I mean, that's Genesis 6:4.
Mm-hmm.
And their offspring have, I think their offspring has a lot more to do with the scriptures than we the readers tend to give it credit, because these same offspring were worshipped as gods and are the lowercase g gods, just like the watchers that were cast down here, that God is jealous of. God warns us to not follow them, because they do have power here. They there's religions that are set up to worship them, and that's another symptom that God noticed, that they wanted to be worshipped and treated, the way that he is, and putting us in this physical world where they are greater than us shows that they did want to be worshipped. They continue to want to be worshipped.
I think that's actually true, like in a very, very real way. What do you make of the line, and there were giants in the earth in those days and after that, especially the and after that part?
Oh, I don't believe that the flood covered up everything.
So you think that some of these Nephilim survived?
Absolutely, I do.
Have you and I spoken about my theory on the Nephilim?
I know that we've tickled it before, but why don't you dive on in?
Okay. Because of the genome and ENCODE projects and our genetic coding of people, we have found that there are certain families that are different from the rest of the planet in their genetics. And every third or fourth generation, which recalls to my mind a curse of every third or fourth generation, and it literally turns out this way, you'll get an anomalous family member. Now, they're every third or fourth generation, so everybody alive already knows this happens in the family, So it's not surprising to the family. They're aware of it. But there's not a defect, a birth defect, or a disease, or it's not giantism. It's not like poor Andre the giant, whose real name I don't know. It's not like him where he had a birth defect that resulted in giantism, but these people are healthy and naturally giants, literally. And that it's significant and obvious to me that it does happen every third or fourth generation, that they are significantly taller than their parents, which we all know shouldn't happen. And that there is actually additional genetic information in those certain families. And while it doesn't appear anywhere else on the planet, except for in those few families, and few, I mean, compared to the total number of families on the planet, not few like 3 or 4.
Well, we have a lot more information from the time of Noah, or like post-flood onward, and we have a lot to confirm the existence of these giants. I mean, the way that they're worshipped and how the stories and the mythologies are interchangeable, they're coming from a similar place in Anatolia and spreading out, the sons of Noah. And they're Cro-Magnon. I mean, everything about them says that they're Cro-Magnon. It also says that all 3 of the sons were Aryan. That's the Hindus. That's the Egyptians. This is the Greeks, the Scythians, on all the way to the Iceni, or the British. I mean, their bloodline has moved all the way around. The Phoenicians were, I mean, everything pretty much was that we have recorded historically has come since this flood. We don't have anything prior to the flood, do we?
Oh, as far as physical evidence?
Yeah.
I mean, some people would say that there's excavated giants, a giant human skeleton. I think those pictures are altered. I don't think those are true. That usually the shadows don't match up.
We couldn't date them. We couldn't date them to before or after the flood either, could we?
Not exactly, no.
Yeah. So these families that spread out from Ararat, they're all they tend to be highly Rh negative in their blood traits. But you do have the Neanderthal family, which is Rh positive. And so somewhere along the line, there was breeding between the Cro-Magnon and the Neanderthal. But the Neanderthal would have had to have still been out there during and after the flood. I mean, it stands to reason. It wouldn't have just evolved simultaneously from an ape in the time that Noah and the kids get out and start spreading their bloodline. And who are they going to breed with? Who would they have bred with anyway? Each other?
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of incest. So I think that they began to breed with the Neanderthal. And that's where we have a lot of the different variations. But you can follow this DNA trail all the way around the world to different places and see where these tribes and civilizations migrated.
Where they came from. Yeah.
Yeah, the Spartans were a part of the tribe of Dan. You knew that?
No, I
They're
had not looked into that.
Their delay in defending the pass of Thermopylae was due to a Jewish ceremony, a festival. But it would have been through their lens of religion. But it's still a practice. During the Maccabees, they wrote to the Spartans to request help, reminding them that they were kin. And then if you look up, the Scottish have claimed that they come from the Scythians. The Scythians were, right there, the Thracians, the steppes. This is all Caucasian. This is all Aryan. The Hindus, Aryan. The Egyptian pharaohs, red hair, blue eyes, Aryan. Cro-Magnon. So you can follow the spread from Anatolia near Mount Ararat all around in the different offshoots of we would call them races, but just the development of mankind from the Cro-Magnon infusion.
And other than genetic testing, which seems like the obvious and defined way to go, how would I recognize one of these descendants?
What do you mean?
Living Nephilim.
The Nephilim?
Yes.
I don't know how that you would today that there would be enough blood quotient for you to really notice much. Now, in some of the royal families where the bloodline is protected, you would you'd probably be able to spot differences. But again, it's so watered down from the source material.
I think it's not, and I think it's obvious, and I think that's why the Bible uses certain phrases.
Okay.
And
how do you spot
why
one?
There's certain traditions. What's that?
How do you spot one?
They don't measure as a human being. That is that a human is approximately the same height as they are wingspan. Wingspan is if you stand as Christ crucified with your palms open, with palms in your hands, that is your fingers extended, and you're measured from the tip of your middle finger to the tip of your middle finger, it's going to be within a small variance, maybe 2.5 inches or less. It's going to match your height. But not people who come from tall families. It doesn't happen in those tall people. But the people who have every third or fourth generation, one pops up. The one that pops up will not measure. And I think that shows that they're part of that family.
I think we talked about that before. Their proportions are off.
Right.
Yeah. And just a note to the side chat, DB Cisco, impressive with the Tuatha De Danann. Yeah, that's cool, man, that you know about that. All right, sorry. Yeah, sometimes I'm surprised to see what people out there know.
DB has exercised himself in education, and actually has learned quite a few things, and that's just evident. But unfortunately, I think is holding some ideas that are contradictory, and I'd love to talk to him about those contradictory ideas.
I'll scooch over if he needs some room.
Not doing another show on the same night. Nope.
Okay.
Nope. 2's enough.
Well, I think this battle has been about these offspring of the fallen angels. I think that's what this all is about. we're a part of it, but we're not the main part of it. You know?
I actually think it's very important. Yes.
Okay.
I think that someone who is altered and not a true child of God can enter into heaven. I mean, that group cannot enter into. I don't know how I said that, but that group cannot enter into heaven. They're not pure blood. I think this is why this bloodline thing is repeated throughout the text. That's actually important.
I don't know. I don't know about where that stops, to what degree that stops, but I do think it's interesting that it's believed that Jesus went into the abyss during the time that while he was resting over the Sabbath, and spoke to, during his death, and
Mm-hmm.
spoke to supposedly the fallen ones that were trapped there. And I wonder what that conversation was about, and if there was any mercy offered towards the very remnants of their, genetics.
I don't know. I think I would want to refer to Enoch, and I don't know how, in what regard you hold Enoch.
A fairly high regard. I think it
You
should
know
have
that.
always been included with the scriptures. Just the
Well,
first book.
it is in some Bibles.
Yeah, like the Ethiopian Bible. But just the first book. I know there's been additional stuff added. Everything from Enoch 1, I was like, yeah, yeah. And then there's other things in the there's reason for me to think that it wasn't all written by the same author.
Fair enough. What about the part about the fallen?
No, I find that to be the only way that the Old Testament makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of a testament to the Old Testament. I think.
I think
Yeah.
it's a highly ignored book that carries a lot of weight if we're willing to
Well,
look at it and
in our
suspend.
European culture, it's disregarded. Yeah, but that's not necessarily the right thing to do with it. Um, so Enoch claims that the fallen asked him to go and testify before God in their behalf,
Yeah.
and he does so. And the father replies to Enoch saying, they knew the deal. They should be praying for you. They're getting no forgiveness.
I noticed that God was upset with Joshua when they made a deal with the tribe. I don't know, it was the Gibeonites or whatever the hell they were, but they made a deal instead of, um, I guess they offered to be slaves instead of being eradicated. And I know the eradication seemed to be reserved in Scripture for the offspring of these Nephilim and the generations to follow. That was the only time that it seemed to be that he was like, wipe them all out.
Yeah.
And this was another one, and it was this instance where he was upset that they made a deal with them that I thought was interesting, and suggested it might be a way to continue on with these bloodlines. But he had to be aware of it. He didn't go back out. Surely he had the ability to tell Joshua to break his treaty with them and wipe them out, but he honored the treaty. He honored that.
Right.
So how far does his acquiescence to man's deals go with free will? Like, because honestly, he's honoring a legal contract, and man apparently does have dominion to do this, or God would have overridden it.
I think that in days past, God has winked.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the time of revelation, in that day there'll be no more winking.
Sure. But
So,
will God withhold wrath on these ones that were spared because of Joshua's covenant with them?
I'd have to review it and think about that specifically. I don't have an opinion on that right now.
Okay, fair.
I'd have to review that.
That's the only reason that I would question whether he would allow any of the genetic remnants. And again, the blood quotient would be so low. I don't even know that, like you said, it expresses maybe once every third generation genetically with a disproportional sized person.
Yeah.
So I don't know at what point that you go, hey, it's thinned out enough. It's not an issue. Or maybe if it's
that's hard to say. I personally feel like it's going to be 100% no forgiveness. It doesn't matter how watered down it is.
I can't claim to have any knowledge on it.
That's what I think it is. Because it reads, speaking to the watchers who fall, Azazel or Azazel, however you like to say that word, and his 200, that is 1/3 of his angels, who agree to this, and each one chose. Obviously, everyone chooses their wife. That's not what it means. It means each one chose to participate. That those will receive no forgiveness. And then there's one line that says, there's more than one line that says, you'll not see your children prosper. And of course, I take prosperity as being our moving on from this paradigm into the next one. That would be the prosperity referred to there.
Okay. I thought you'll not see your children prosper, meaning I'm going to flood the earth and see how long they can tread water.
But that's what I asked you about after that.
Okay, yeah, after that. But I think most of them were destroyed in that. But a lot that remained became very prosperous. Very, very prosperous. Godlike.
Actually, I see a lot of them. They are demigods, actually, in history.
I agree.
And those alive today are demigods. But they also show every aspect of not having any humility. They abuse their partners. They are like having to be bailed out of jail all the time. The ones who don't measure. Go ahead.
Is it possible that narcissism is a trait that runs through that bloodline? See, I really think a lot about that. A lot of the psychological disorders, because again, when we were talking about the Rh negative bloodline and the Rh positive bloodline, I think it's the Rh negative mother, if they will, the child will automatically miscarry if it's a Rh positive father. Like it will not.
Like that. I can't remember which way that goes, but there's something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's an interesting sort of like natural rejection of whatever this is in a lot of cases. I'm really kind of confused about how deep this goes. If it's still strong enough, this trait to reject, I mean, it must still be a factor. And I think this has to do with the psychological disorders as well, with narcissism and all. If it's this infusion of hybrid DNA,
I don't think you can get more narcissistic than I will become as God.
Yeah, no, yeah. And they
wow, really?
Yeah, and over again, these beings, they felt entitled to call themselves gods or demigods and claim sirage from gods because of how their stature dwarfed the average person and their technology, their abilities to think beyond. But there could never be the thinking that I am like you, or that I am as concerned with your needs as mine when you think you're God. As one of these creatures. So that narcissistic behavior. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I've met a few people who I suspected, and they testified when asked, and were proud of it. Extremely proud of it. In fact, to the point where it's like, I'm sorry, could you back off a little bit? Okay, you're a vegetarian. Great, shut up. Like that kind of a reaction when you ask them about their diet. These people who appear to be Nephilim, that they obviously don't measure, they're the same ones that we made fun of in school, calling them cavemen and throwbacks and monkey arms and all of those things, because their arms are literally not proportionate to their bodies. So when I see someone who fits that, where walking, standing upright, their fingertips are almost all the way down to their knees, I've several times stopped them and asked them about their comparative height and width, and without fail, they seem to know, because other people noticed it and they measured it. Now they brag about it. So it's like a point of narcissism for them. I have met one who was, I want to get these numbers right, 6'8", whose wingspan was 7'6". That's a 10-inch difference. That's not a little tiny variance.
That's pretty tall.
That's really tall, and he can reach 10 inches wider than his height.
He can scratch his knees without bending over.
Yes, he could. Just slunch one shoulder down, and he could reach it. And he's not the only one. There are many more examples. I have encountered, I think, 4 since 2012, and inquired about it, and they bragged about it, and they knew it right now. They know it. It's not a maybe. They know.
They know what?
They know that their reach is much greater than the average human beings.
But you didn't point out that, hey, there's a chance that you're the descendant of some sort of.
Depends on my relationship. Once I actually have. Actually, twice I actually have.
I've only met one that I'll say I felt pretty sure was a descendant of one of the Nephilim, and I can't tell you that I know what his dimensions were. I know he was probably around 6'6", maybe 6'6". He was an inmate, and he was a con man, and he was really clever. The thing that was interesting, he was
very smart.
Yeah, he was very. I mean, very. He could seem empathetic when he wanted to. I mean, he was very manipulative, very smart. Sure. But he was extraordinarily slender, and I ended up in a tussle with him, and I was just totally blown away by the sheer strength, because I'm no small man, and
right.
He was able to resist me with ease.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what I did, and there's no explanation for his strength. It took 4 or 5 of us just to try and slow him down.
Except I think there is a very good explanation for their strength.
You're right, but to me at the time, I was like, this doesn't make any sense, because I'm looking at you and I should be able to tie you in a knot at will. And even though he was tall, just proportionally, where did the strength come from?
Right.
Like with one arm, he had lifted me.
That strong.
He lifted me off the ground with one arm.
Yeah.
And I, solid 240 at the time, and he just lifted me up off the ground. I was holding his arm, and he just raised it.
Yeah.
And I went up with it. I was blown away. But I just, I wrote it off. I was like, wow, that dude's really strong. And then it wasn't until later I started thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Just a really gifted man too. I mean, like gifted as far as speech, being able to manipulate. I've never seen anything like it. The long con, this dude was like a genius, and could play chess like 4 or 5 games simultaneously.
Somehow I'm not very surprised by any of those aspects. Now I would ask you about his belief in God.
Not really something he discussed. It was a non-issue. He was all about gangster shit.
I've reviewed with those that I've met. They will readily say things like, we humans are God, or I personally am God, or even deism. I've seen it go into a pretty relaxed, get as far as like a relaxed deism. But when it comes to like the idea that the Bible might be accurate, or some ancient text might be accurate, anything other than like the new agey kind of ideas, no way, not going there. In fact, you can watch professional sports, and you can catch football players making a sign of the cross or gesturing up toward the heavens. You can watch baseball players do it, soccer players, all these different, very, very much in the height of their physicality, very much anomalous against other human beings, outrageously good compared to your average person, athletes, and all of them have humility when it comes to God, until you watch basketball. And these guys that don't measure, I think they put so much pressure on the guys whose families are just naturally tall that they won't do it either. Like I'm hard pressed to find. Someone told me one time they found one guy who did something like that was a professional basketball player, but it's certainly anomalous. You don't see them, do one of these. You're just not going to see that.
I'd say if I was just going to base it on his behavior, it would have been the I am God, but not in a belief of his own, being a deity in any way, but just that
Right.
I don't believe he ever looked at any man as his equal. And I
Right.
definitely noticed his behavior because I watch people. He was looking at other people as being lesser than, more like prey. Everyone was a new opportunity for him to play.
I think
You know
that's
what
the
I mean?
attitude of most of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just a game to him, all of it. So, and I'd have to say he didn't seem like he was unhappy in there. Like, cause he was
No,
ruling
probably
in
not.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
in
you did
fact,
what he
they're
said.
kind of used to ruling in life in their own little neighborhood. They're used to being in charge.
Well, he was an interesting fellow, and he was the only one that I could say felt like he was not natural. There was something just really off with him. He was above the cut. You know what I mean? But as far as immoral, I mean, he could the things that he would do and probably still does, just crazy immoral. Like and there was no sympathy, there was no empathy, genuine
Right.
empathy. He could emulate it, but it wasn't genuine.
Right.
So again, that otherness, there was always that feeling of otherness. Does that make
I
sense?
imagine so.
Otherness.
No, but yeah, that word's fine. Shakespeare wrote his own words. It's fine. Just make it up as you need to, as the situation calls for. Just make up a word. It's fine.
That's
Uh,
scrumdiddulous.
yeah, exactly.
I'm getting into it.
Uh, right. So, yeah, I wouldn't expect them to act any other way, actually. In fact, I'd be very surprised to find one that didn't act like that, who
I
isn't
agree.
beautiful and large and in charge and knows it and might be somewhat sympathetic, but you have to wonder how much of it is just I learned how to get along, so I emulate those who are sympathetic and have no real sympathy.
Narcissists. I mean, it goes along with being that kind of other.
It just
You
adds up
you
for me. I mean, it just
yeah.
makes sense to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we have gone 47 minutes already.
Hmm.
And I'd like to schedule another talk with you maybe earlier in the day when you would have more time. But I want to be considerate of the fact that you have infants and a spouse person to also consider, and I'm not forgetting that. So, um,
Well, yeah, I, I just don't want to be loud this evening, but I do appreciate you moving up the time a little bit for me.
no problem, no problem at all. But I want to go ahead and end this while it's still in bite-sized chunks. And I would invite you back anytime you have time because I've really enjoyed this and appreciate this. I need to know a lot more about your position, and
Do
that
you?
has just become evident to me. Yes,
Or we could get together and do karaoke again. That was fun.
fun. Yes, not what I prefer to do.
Okay. Yeah, but you
It
do
is
so
fun.
good at it.
Yeah, I'm not really into fun that much these days. I only do it for other people.
Yeah, I hear the words coming out of your mouth, but I look at your beard and see ZZ Top. So
Actually, I've been accused. I've been accused of being one of the prior artists who is hiding as common guy. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you having me, man.
It was a blast.
All right.
Any last thoughts? Shill your channel?
No, none of that.
Anything like that at all? Okay.
No.
All right. For everyone who showed up, thank you very much, Krishna and Nisha and DB. And DB, you're welcome to have a conversation. I would even have a moderated conversation on Ace's channel if he would agree to that. I just don't like this thing where you poke in the ribs and run away. Let's actually have a talk. Let's see. Let me go back through and say, obviously Ace, whom I just mentioned, and Wildheart, and Krishna. Thank you all very much. Peace and respect to you all, and good night. And I want you all to know that I truly do look forward to the day that we're all great friends. Later.
Cool.
Cool.